Jennifer, you're on with the campaign. When did you come on board, and what's the game plan in Georgia for the Trump campaign?
So I just came on board within the last few days, and we're going to have a series of announcements in the next few weeks that outline more of what we've got going on with the campaign. We're going to be very active in Georgia, as we always are, as the Republican Party always is in the presidential cycle. But at the same time, we have every confidence that the state will remain red, that the state will go for Mr. Trump, and that we will deliver a victory for Mr. Trump from Georgia in November.
Well, Jennifer, I've got a message from a viewer where our sound is good. Now, you say we're going to deliver a victory, and we're going to keep Georgia red. What is the thought in the campaign right now of Georgia? Was there concern in the polls that they brought you on board? So what are they telling you?
No, this is just, the natural evolution and an expansion of the campaign in the state. And it's not a reaction to anything. It's the standard operating procedure for a Republican campaign operating within the state of Georgia. It's the way we've always done things. And so it's just making sure that we've got the right people in the right places to get us across the finish line in November.
Okay, let me say, when we first started, we were trying to get some technical things worked out to get this started. But let me say, Jennifer, I want to say congratulations. I think the Trump campaign has done an outstanding job bringing you on board. And I think they've done an outstanding job bringing is it Kellyanne or Kellyanne Conway?
Kellyanne Conway, yeah. She is now the national campaign manager.
Well, I tell you what, that is great. And I think the Trump campaign, they're making some awesome moves. And the national media continues to want to make us believe that these are just reactions. What if these are calculated moves at the proper time?
Kellyanne was already with the campaign. So if you read the headlines yesterday, it looked like, the mainstream media was ginning this whole thing up as if it were a shakeup. It's not a shakeup in any way, shape, or form. It's an expansion of the campaign. As we come down this home stretch, Kellyanne was already serving as a senior advisor. She was doing a great job. Her role expanded. She's picking up some of the some of the territory that was left open when Corey Lewandowski left the campaign. And, she's solid. She's worked with numerous, presidential campaigns in the past. And she's going to add a great dimension to the Trump team in her expanded role. She was already doing a great job in her past role. And then bringing on Stephen Bannon, again, it's just, looking at where the needs are and filling them. And that's Mr. Trump at the end of the day is a businessman, and business people look for talent. They look for the people who can help them achieve their goals, and they bring them on board, and then they take action, and they tend to do it very quickly. And I think what you're seeing is a reflection of that.
What do you make out of some of the polling, Jennifer? Now, you keep track of it. We've seen you on the Georgia Gang several times, and we know you're focused in there. AJC polling, other polling in the state of Georgia, what do you make out of that?
Well, I think, like any poll, it just depends on which poll you're looking at. And you also have to, when you're looking at polling information, you can't just look at the numbers. You have to actually look at how the poll was conducted, what was the size of the sample, was one party over another more represented or less represented? What was the method in which they used to reach people? Was it phone calls, landlines only? Because if you do that, you're going to skew older. Was it landlines and cell phones? If so, who were the people on cell phones? Do they use online polling? So, the poll is only as good as the process that the pollsters used. But I think we were, we saw within the last few days a CBS battleground poll just focused here within the state of Georgia, and it had Mr. Trump up by 4 points. And so, that I think is a positive sign for where we are in the state.
Jennifer, I want to say what you just said about polling and the samples they take. Yesterday, I interviewed Lee Snover. Lee Snover's in the Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. She's the GOP chair of Northampton County, which has 300,000 people in that. She's running 5 counties for the Trump campaign. She's not a paid staffer, but she's a go-to person for 20 years there. She's receiving calls from Philadelphia media reporters in Philadelphia begging her to say Trump's pulling out of Pennsylvania. We heard that yesterday right here on this show that they are calling people in Pennsylvania or surrounding the Trump campaign just trying to get somebody to bite. What is it like running against the media? Don't include me, Jennifer.
Well, I think, those of us who are in the Republican camp, we are used to this. I mean, they do this to us every single time. So this is not news for any of us who have worked in politics before. And, I think what we're seeing now is the typical reaction to the mainstream media during a presidential cycle. I mean, they did it to McCain, they did it to Romney, and now they're trying to do it to Mr. Trump. They might, give people, like Mr. Romney, like Senator McCain, like Mr. Trump, some, more favorable treatment in the primaries. But as soon as the primaries are over, we have seen a pattern of the mainstream media circling its wagons and protecting the Democrat. And I think there's a lot of that going on right now.
Well, and also talking about the sample she was bringing up, and I know you're focused on Georgia, but I have a theory on why they're trying to make Georgia sound so close, but that she was saying that in Pennsylvania, the polls are not what the national media is trying to make it out to be, that they're not, if we remember in the primary, Pennsylvania had a large number of Democrats that switched to Republican. One of the number one states that had Democrats go to Republican and new voters.
Right.
And she said they're not sampling the Democrats that have switched to Republican, and they're not sampling the new voters. And the polls are really skewed in that state.
Well, I can't speak to that directly. I think it's entirely possible. I think, what Mr. Trump did demonstrate in the primaries in Pennsylvania is exactly what you said. He did mobilize a whole lot of new voters. He mobilized a whole lot of people who were disenchanted with the policies of the last 8 years under Barack Obama. We saw sort of a reemergence of the classic Reagan Democrat crossing over to vote Republican. So while I can't speak specifically to any of the polls in Pennsylvania, what I can say is it's highly likely that their polls are only going to be as good as their samples. And if their samples aren't representative of what's going on in the ground in Pennsylvania, then the polls are going to be wrong.
Let me wrap up today what time we have left with just 2 major subjects. Number one, what is your role in Georgia what has it been like working for the campaign? What is going on? Is it organized, or who's giving you direction in Georgia, and what is your role here in the campaign in Georgia?
So, my job is to get the campaign's message out across the state. At all quarters of the state, from Atlanta to Savannah to Albany, all the way up to Blue Ridge. We want to make sure that people are excited and engaged about the campaign, and to let them know that we have a presence here in Georgia. We are getting great leadership from the campaign in New York. Like I said, I've only been on the campaign for a matter of days now, but everything seems to be very well organized. Things seem to be firing on all cylinders. People are engaged. They know their roles. Everybody's executing. And so I think all of the Trump supporters out there should feel very good about where we are right now and what we look like going towards November.
Well, Jennifer, I say it jokingly, I'd be in trouble if I left today and didn't tell you that Donald Trump would really look good in a picture next to Oscar Poole in his yellow suit, right? I had to say that. You know that. I
have been getting calls about that from the folks up in LJ like crazy. So yes, I'm very well aware that they would like to make that happen. Alas, we don't actually schedule the candidate. All of that is done in New York. So that really is in New York's hands. But I'm sure, I know LJ would love to have him. And if Mr. Trump were to come to LJ and visit Poole's Barbecue, the turnout would be massive. So
15,000. It would be huge, Jennifer.
It would be.
15,000 people with the mountains as a backdrop and the king of barbecue in a yellow suit.
Well,
What can I say?
I think Oscar will run out of real estate on Pig Mountain. You know, if Mr. Trump came, he would have to go and get an extra supply of wooden pigs because there would be no more space on Pig Mountain. He would have to expand it, I guess, or find another mountain.
Well, Jennifer, we thank you for coming on the show this morning. We know we're going to have you back a lot. You're going to be here several times before this campaign is over. I think things are settling down in September. The media, the left side of that campaign, Hillary Clinton, only had August. And now the media has no choice but to start reporting recently that things seem to be going in a different direction in the Trump campaign.
You know, it's so funny you would say that, Ryan. I mean, this is kind of where the whole thing that we get with the mainstream media. I don't know if you've taken a look at the Wall Street Journal yet this morning, if you've had a chance, but right there on the front page is an article that, you know, it yet again connects that $400 million cash payment to the release of hostages. And you know, Hillary Clinton was part of that administration, but even on her own, you know, we have got, with this particular candidate, this Democrat, such a laundry list of misdeeds, from repeatedly lying to the American people, from not following federal law when it comes to managing classified information and government email, which are considered government records. You know, I worked on Capitol Hill. I understand, you know, what all of that entails. You know, on and on down the list. You know, an FBI investigation is possibly still pending on the Clinton Foundation, possible allegations of pay for play. I had a reporter say to me yesterday, you know, made some comment about Mr. Trump's, you know, sometimes what's perceived to be an off the cuff style. And my reaction to her is, you know, but where are you guys talking about the other candidate who actually has done terrible things? You know, you might quibble with a word choice on a campaign trail at a stump speech, but isn't that minor in comparison to a candidate who is so deeply flawed and has actually done really bad things? And, you know, how are we even considering this person as being fit to hold the public, you know, the highest office in the land? And I think that's you know, what we've got to keep driving home in the campaign is, wait a minute, let's look at really who you know, who's fit versus unfit. And I think you make a very hard case when trying to argue that Hillary Clinton is fit to be president of the United States.
Fit to be president. Jennifer, I don't want to interrupt you. I read that article this morning, $400 million ransom. And yet, since the ransom was paid, I'm going to call it a ransom, and the 4 Americans were freed, there's still 3 Americans in captivity in Iran. There's another 3. But I want to lead to something else. They continue to say, can Donald Trump be presidential? The optics of that picture yesterday with his security clearance briefing with retired General Flynn and with Rudy Giuliani and that staff around that table, that was an amazing picture of presidential. Would you agree?
I agree. Yeah. And more to come.
So I'm looking forward to the picture of Hillary's group that she assembles today.
Well, we'll see how they respond today. But again, you know, you know, those of us who work in politics and even people who are just interested observers, I think any rational person would look at the mountain of evidence against her and question, how can anybody like this even be under consideration to lead our...
Well, Jennifer, I want to say again, they did an outstanding job bringing you on board. The Trump campaign is showing with Kellyanne Conway and the other gentleman, I don't want to forget his name
Bannon.
there. What's Stephen Bannon? Great direction forward. We wish you well, and we want to have you back real soon, as many times, and as many people from the campaign that can come join us, let us know.
Okay, we'll do. Sounds good.
Thank you. Have a great day,
Thanks,
Jennifer.
you too.